A school space has a certain spirit about it. That's what they call school spirit. And when people come to school, they're all contributing to that spirit and that sense of community. Teachers, students use that space and interact and create relationships. And that meeting place created a rhythm in society. Getting up in the morning, going to that meeting place, socializing, engaging in a classroom setting, and trying to be your best self. March 2020. It was the second semester. Students were just getting in the flow of school.
I was in grade 9, so I was 14. All of a sudden, people on the news are talking about how this virus is infecting millions of people. And then the next day, it was just sudden news that this thing that everyone was talking about, the coronavirus, just shut down all the schools.
This culture of fear just overwhelmed everybody. You go outside and you don't hear kids playing or laughter or anything. It's like a dead city.
This is Danielle and her two besties at grade 8 graduation. This is Danielle and her sister Nicole at a family event. My name's Liz, and my daughter was one of that cohort of students who were in grade 12 when the pandemic hit. It's usually such an exciting time. It's a big step for them, but everything was locked down. Everything was virtual. They didn't get a prom. There was no high school graduation. Kids were isolated and at home, being forced to learn virtually.
I was friends with Danielle, Liz's daughter. We were very close. She, like I, also was not a virtual learner. I hated it. I'd wake up, sign in on my computer, and I'd just fall back asleep.
You could even record yourself, just a looped video of you just going like, and you could just play that over Google Meet and be like sleeping. Like, I just did not care, and no one else did.
We have students that have traditionally disengaged, have dropped out of school. There's always those kids. But because of COVID, it was an easier exit for them. No resistance to leaving, no resistance to disengaging.
It was so easy to check out of school. All it took was a click.
Which of the following societies has...
Shutting schools down was a massive mistake. Socially, the kids were devastated.
These kids lost out on friendships, connections. There were no sports. There were no clubs, and it really hurt them.
It's like the prime of my life was pretty much just taken away from me.
Maybe the first couple of weeks of the pandemic, I understand that it would be closed, but afterwards I just thought this is way too long, too unnecessary. Too many people are being hurt and missing out on the school experience.
Some of my students hadn't been outside in over a year. It was just astonishing. You need the human element in order to learn and to grow. And by shutting the schools down, you took out pretty much the most important element of learning and growth, which is contact and socialization. You took that out, and that was a tragic mistake.
This is the last vacation that we had together. We went out west and drove from Vancouver to
Calgary through the mountains.
All the mandates and the lockdowns and the isolation contributed greatly to the demise of her mental health. And during the pandemic years, my daughter committed suicide. And then this is the picture that we used for the funeral.
No one was looking at the well-being of the children. The mental health is a huge issue, and how could it be otherwise? I'm firmly of the view that the biggest catastrophe coming out of the pandemic is the collapse of education systems around the world. Collapses that yielded huge numbers of children who are not educated at all, a population the size of the European Union, if we can imagine, juxtaposed with huge populations that are vastly undereducated. And together those form the basis of our tomorrow. And what tomorrow can that be? It will be a very difficult tomorrow if you have huge numbers of children who don't understand proper habits, proper standards, who have stopped dreaming, who have become depressed, who are also undereducated. What does that foretell for the social consequences? We're talking about life expectancy, literacy rates, numeracy rates, levels of well-being, levels of criminality, of homelessness, of broken families. All of these are foretold by the collapse of the education system. We decided to describe the problem in terms of buckets in order to explain what it means to be out of school. The first bucket is physical or classical school, which almost everyone enjoyed before the pandemic. The second bucket is the virtual school, to which we imagined most of the world pivoted when the schools physically closed. And the third bucket is no school at all, permanently. They never returned to school once the schools would reopen. As soon as the school closed, all three buckets were in play. This third bucket is vast and is deep. First of all, there's a basic category of kids in advanced countries and less advanced countries alike who don't have access to internet or mobile devices. So schooling disappears, there's no pivot to online. But even if a student is online, now what happens within the home? Let's say a student is in an abusive home. What about students with physical or intellectual disabilities? Students who fell ill or who had family who fell ill? Students who had to go to work or who were seduced to work? And finally, there was the teenagers, middle and high schoolers, for whom schooling lost all meaning once it went online. No physical walls, no boyfriend, girlfriend, no mentors, no sports, no music, no play, no ambition, and they're out.
I feel like one of the third bucket kids. I was in school and have not been back since the pandemic. So I've just been working.
Morning. My name is Nancy Rousseau, principal of Little Rock Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. I would say that the closing of the schools has caused the largest loss of learning and, as a result, damaged children that is historically present. Children need structure, and they perform best when that's the case.
I am a physical education teacher teaching in a remote community in Manitoba, Canada. The school entirely consists of Indigenous students. There's been a huge drop-off in student retention and in attendance. Further to that is major drop in self-confidence. The students missed out in the social development area for those 2 years, mostly because of forced isolation, and also there are issues with technology and how prevalent it's become. We had technology in the classroom, we had technology at home. while they were going to bed, while they were walking to school, everywhere. It was an escape.
We have seen the negative impacts of COVID on kids' engagement in school across all socioeconomic status. The mental health problems exist across all income and household background, achievement levels, and the declines in attendance and engagement we see across all of those levels as well.
Students returning to school are struggling socially, how to interact, how to play. They're very aggressive because they miss something.
I've never seen the level of violence in our school the way it was this past year. Kids had lost the capacity to socialize, to problem solve the most simplest things. It was insane.
I think in education, we have undervalued the role of interpersonal relationships in actual cognitive development and growth and learning, and their value for kids' development overall.
I would very much like if, for the balance of the century, school closures were associated with the darkest arts of public policy, now that we know the devastating consequences.
I believe that if the schools had have still been open, my daughter would still be alive. You're really passionate about it. I think you have to be passionate about it. After all of us being locked down and shut down for such a long period of time, so much of the energy has been drained from everything. And so we are trying to bring that energy back to young people, bring that excitement back of learning. I'm just hoping that I can help some other kids to get back on track and have a positive, successful future.
There will be future pandemics, and there will be pandemics that will affect children unlike this one. And we'll still have to make a calculation, how do we continue education? Not to presume that we close education to save them today, only for them to have misery tomorrow. So the lesson is, never close the schools. Let's get to work en masse, and then hopefully Canada can also send a signal to other countries around the world.